So I was thinking about what is the best way of determining what are the robot builders focused on? At a macro level, in different verticals, what are they building? One answer that I thought about was, how about I talk to somebody focused on the robotics recruitment space to pull on where the talent is going? And that's when I reached out to my friend, Greg Toroosian of Samson Rose. He runs a recruitment firm and he has the front row seat around where the robotic companies are hiring. I want to discuss with him what is the future of robotics? What trends is he seeing? What practical advice can he offer that will be useful for aspiring roboticists and established roboticists that are looking to build their companies, that are building their products? I want to discover hiring strategies that are working. And most importantly, I'm interested in how has he built his podcast, the very successful Machine Mind, going at 130 episodes, incredible content, incredible discussions, great guests, something that is an inspiration to me. Check out his podcast. To kick it off, please join me on this exciting episode of Robot Builders Club. We are going deep on the talent side of robotics. My name is Ali Afzal. Let's dive in. All right, Mr. Greg, what an honor to have you. I'm super excited and have been super excited for this conversation for two reasons. Number one, through Samson Rose, your recruitment firm, I want to understand what are the robot builders actually hiring for? What are they actually recruiting and building? And second piece, you have Machine Mind podcast, super successful, which is what got me interested in starting the podcast. I listened to it, your engaging format, how you were communicating, how you pull insights from the guests. You're 130 odd episodes in already, and now you're doing in-person interviews and all of that. So you're a trailblazer for me. If I can be a little bit of a fanboy in that sense. We'll get into it, but I wanted to get that out of the way and say it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
You flatter me. Thank you. That was really heartwarming to hear, and I appreciate it. It means a lot when people in the community, I started the podcast for the ecosystem, really is one of the 5 reasons I started it, but a big part was like to give back and share for whether it's entrepreneurs going on their journey and hearing from people that have done it, or investors that might invest in their ideas, or for people in the community looking at new exciting products and companies and keeping a pulse on it. So that means a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Pleasure's all mine. So let's jump straight into, you probably have the clearest signal where the robotics is headed through your network, through your hiring efforts. Where's the talent actually going right now?
Ooh, it's a loaded question. It's, the longer I stay and work in the robotics space and meet more people and learn more, what is very, very clear to me is that, and it was actually intentional as well by focusing on the robotics space, because it's very hard not to be interested and excited by robots, right, in general. But people's idea of a robot, the general public, is like normally a C3PO or humanoid or something like that, right? The longer you're in the industry and the more people you meet and the more conversations you have, you realize that it's such a catch-all industry when you say robotics, especially now, because there's smart manufacturing, right? 3D printing is robotics. Drones are robots. Self-driving cars are robots. Before people would be like, I work in autonomous vehicles, but that's a robot at the end of the day. It's an AMR.
Yeah.
It's just a different application. Same with a drone. Now it's maritime. You've got quadrupeds, AMRs, humanoids, you name it. And then advanced manufacturing, logistics. So it's a hard question to answer about where the talent's going, because there's now robots in almost every industry. Very big generalization, but every industry, if you look at, there's a way of incorporating some sort of automation, whether it's physical or AI. But robotics is, I think it's a lot farther reaching than the general public appreciate and know that even in their day-to-day lives, their goods in their home or things that turn up at their house from Amazon, or when they go out to buy something, has all touched a robot in some way.
Fair. Yeah. I guess if we narrow it down, which industry, which vertical within robots or robotic adjacent spaces are hot, are attracting talent, are
Yeah.
building.
I think advanced manufacturing, vertically integrated anything really, even warehouses, logistics, rethinking those. There's companies out there that are completely rethinking manufacturing from instead of we're going to go in and automate part of this workflow and put robots in it. Same thing you could think about like in a logistics situation, stuff from A to B or do pick and place. There's very interesting projects going on out there where they're completely rethinking the whole building. Like there's even within construction. I think, again, it's a hard question to answer, but the ones that are rethinking industries, and thinking about our factory is our product, not what we produce, but our logistics facility is our product. And we're doing end to end, first principles thinking instead of like, how can we come in there and retrofit what you're doing? How can we build it from the ground up? Very interesting,
Yeah,
but in a lot of ways a moonshot because huge capital investment. You have to
right.
manufacture, build all these new products and all of that stuff. But when they work, and I work with some of them right now as clients in different areas, and it's just so vibrant, it's so exciting when people see it and speak about it. It's like it's not just another AMR, right? It's not
Yeah,
just another robot arm.
right.
So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. I think probably the shift is explained by the fact that United States is no longer just a service-based economy, which it was for the longest time. They're getting manufacturing back in, especially in those industries such as medtech, defense, where IP is super sensitive and you don't want contract manufacturing. So you got to build in-house
Yeah.
manufacturing capabilities.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my clients, he's basically like a manufacturing whiz. That's his whole career is manufacturing. So in his career, companies, aerospace, defense, or et cetera, would bring him in to head up manufacturing, which is obviously the natural thing to do. But those companies are started by product people or engineers. So they're first doing the R&D. They're thinking about how can we better this product and make this. But where the issues come in is when you do manufacturing for scale. And then you're not thinking about it in that way. And he had this huge successful career in manufacturing, spent a lot of time in China. And he was telling me, he's like, contract manufacturing, gene shops, all of that, they don't really exist over there. Everything is vertically integrated, which is how they reduce the cost, which is how they control the quality, they control the costs, and they automate so much. And that's the only way to do it at scale. If you want to ramp up production, if you want to reduce costs, if you want to be competitive, instead of a lot of defense companies out here will outsource, to machine shops, contract manufacturers. Well, the defense companies aren't offshoring, but like automotive, your offshore
Yeah.
parts, whatever it is, robotics. How do you get competitive with China? How do you
Yeah.
end up cranking out the numbers that we need to in the country and at the quality level as well? So that's the way of doing it. And when you understand the big problem, the big picture, that's why it's so interesting, right? And you have to rework it from the beginning because the traditional way of doing it here, where it becomes fragmented and outsourced, and I think in the defense space, some of it was like secretive. We'll give a part here so no one knows what we're
Mm.
really doing. We'll give a part over here, or you can have like deniability about what is actually going on, stuff like that.
You're hitting the nail on the head, and the spaces that I've been from my background, Cisco, Jewel, I'm now in medtech robotics. I'm seeing the same shift. We're seeing before we were very dependent on contract manufacturers and offshore scaling, and now things are shifting. So that creates new opportunity. That shift is exciting for US and for local manufacturing, automation, and all of that. So it's wonderful. With that, I want to take a step back. I want to know about your origin story, Samson Rose. What got you into talent hiring? What did you see early on that made you interested in getting into the recruitment space?
Yeah, that's a story in itself. I think like most people in the recruiting world, I kind of fell into it. I was introduced to it by accident. It was just by chance. My background, I was actually in the music industry. So that was all I
Wow.
wanted to ever do. Yeah, I wanted to own a nightclub and manage artists and DJ. And I was doing
Really?
that stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when I was younger. So I was like studying music. I was working in the industry. I had my own
Yeah.
business. I was a DJ, a producer, manager, all of that stuff. And I just hit a point where I was very jaded by the industry, the people that I was around, the people that I looked up to. When I started working with them and hiring them, I was like, I don't want to be like them when I'm older. Like, this is just,
Yeah.
and I always wanted to move to the US and I didn't see that happening in that industry. In hindsight, if I had like a mentor or someone who was like, hey, you're doing much more than anyone else your age. And if you stick to it and do this structure, it might have
Mm,
turned out differently. But, that's hindsight. So I decided I wanted to work in something that was meritocratic because then I was doing, like I said, work, study, hobby,
yeah.
personal projects, everything was in that. And it wasn't giving back what I was putting in. And I wanted something a bit more meritocratic where I could move up, where there was a structure, where I could learn things, where there was an opportunity to move internationally. And I fell into sales for a brief period. And one of my best friend's sisters was in recruiting. She was like, hey, we've got this trainee position. I think you'd be great. You're a people person. You're already doing sales
Yeah.
stuff. And in the UK, it was like the birth of sales recruiting. They call it a full desk. You're a 360 recruiter. So you do business development and you go and find the candidates and you fill the role. So I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. And I spoke to one of my other best friends who was a team leader in another recruiting business. And he's like, you don't want to go and work at that company. I just filled all the roles in my team, but
Yeah.
you want somewhere that's more established and has resources. Let me get you some interviews. Fast forward, one of the introductions he made for me, I ended up in that company and the rest was history. I started there, the trade, moved into a different company after a couple of years and worked my way up to the point where there was a British company expanding in the US and they were primarily in like quant and fintech and they
Okay.
were expanding in software and they sponsored my visa and moved me over to help expand that. But after that point, I think I've been in recruits for about 7 years and I said, I really want to go in-house because I'd always done external agency side, but there was something missing. Like I didn't understand what happened behind that door, right? You've got these clients and you're kind of like a necessary evil in some ways and you're just
Yeah.
transactional. And I was like, I don't understand how people are in meetings all the time or why they take so long to get back on emails. Like I need to understand. So I went in-house and worked my way up in there. And I worked for a fintech and ad tech company at first. And then I was headhunted to go to Hyperloop One, which is this Elon Musk idea, high speed transportation in a tube, levitating pod.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was there for about 3 years. At the end, I was one of the leaders of talent acquisition. I was like employee 60 something, and then we went to over 300. So it was great, amazing. That was my first introduction to the hardware space. Everything else I'd done before was software or infrastructure, network, Cisco, Juniper, stuff like that. I was doing Java developers, started in .NET. So it was a mixture of everything. But there I came in and I was like, wow, there's levitation pods and there's 3D
Mm,
printers and no one had built a Hyperloop before. So we had people from aerospace and defense and automotive and rail and like PhD people that had worked on like the Mars rover project. And it was so cool. And I'm very good friends with a lot of people from there and people have gone off and started companies and they're clients of mine. When they had layoffs there, I went to a company called Sweetgreen, who, if depending what city you're in, there's probably Sweetgreens around. They're like fast casual salad chain.
oh yeah, yeah. I've
Yeah,
seen those. Yeah.
very tech centric. So it was like direct to their consumer. They had apps, they had a website, but then we were also doing robotics for the kitchen, so food prep. And
Really?
so I was
I did
reporting
not
to the
know that.
CEO, yeah, and COO, helping build out all of that stuff. We found out we were having our second child, and my wife was like, "You've always talked about starting a business. Now's the time.
Yeah.
We need to move closer to my family." So gave it a lot of thought, and thought it was a crazy time, but that's kind of prompted it. And yeah, that was over
Wow.
6.5 years ago now.
What a journey.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing that you started a new baby. Starting a company is like having a baby. So you started that while you're having a child. That's taking a lot of risk on and more power to you. You made it happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the first, I don't know, 6 months, we moved house, had a child, started a business, and then it was the pandemic. And
Mm.
it was a little
Wow.
bit of a whirlwind. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are you still making music?
No, 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 no. I started DJing again just as a hobby a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Time is not something that I have a
Yeah.
lot of, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Thank you for sharing that journey. That's incredible. What did you see when you got into robotic space that made you go, this is a space that you can grow in. This is the
Mm.
vertical. I know you're not just focusing on pure robotics, adjacent products as well, hard tech, physical AI, all of that is within your purview. But why this space? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I mentioned earlier, it's hard not to be interested or passionate about robotics. Like from a child, you see movies and things like that. And as you learn more about it, I think anyone who cares a little bit about technology, that is just one thing that's like fascinating. And there's just so much to learn and it touches so many
Mm,
different industries and different areas. When I started my business, obviously I had some introduction into robotics from the Hyperloop days and then Sweetgreen. When I started my business, one of my first clients was in robotics and they were a an investor and incubator in different robotics projects. So great introduction
mm,
from a client standpoint to see they were doing stuff in ag tech, in food tech. What else? Those are the main two that they were doing in, and a couple of other areas. There was like even within food tech, there was like coffee making, pizza making, boba making,
yeah.
avocados, etc., the guacamole. So that was pretty cool to get into. And then it really opened my eyes to all the other areas there was viability and growth. But what I will say though is when I started my business and when I decided, hey, I'm just going to focus on robotics or double down on this area, if I had worked at another company, if I was an employee at another recruiting firm, I probably wouldn't have been able to build the business that I wanted to. I wouldn't have been able to focus on it because there wasn't enough investment. There wasn't enough volume. The companies were too green. They weren't
Mm,
hiring enough people. They weren't paying enough. There were obviously bigger players, but there's just nothing like there has been in the last couple of years of new companies coming out and the amount of investment and the amount of interest and actually like adoption from a B2B
yeah.
standpoint. It was just more like smaller R&D projects and some bigger companies, but then those would like get bought by Amazon or were already multinational
Mm,
and things like that. So I was lucky that I was able to do that because I worked for myself and I decided like, this is what I want to focus on. I'll make a name for myself here. After COVID, I went really hard on networking and conferences. And then I started the podcast almost 3 years ago. So that really helped. So
and
yeah.
we'll talk more about the podcast. But that's so forward thinking of you identifying this vertical and going, this is where the growth is going to happen. Hardware is tough to build to begin with. It's multidisciplinary. You need talent from all these different areas: software, hardware, design, supply chain, operations, quality. All of these disciplines come together. So you need a bigger team. That makes sense. And once an industry is scaling, you're in the right space. So if I want to pull some insights from you because you're so plugged into the ecosystem, where are your inbounds from companies coming from in terms of what skills are they hiring for? What's spiking right now in this moment in time where companies are coming out of demos and they're looking us to scale, especially if you're looking at pure robotic players?
Yeah, good question. I'd say the ones that are looking at scaling are probably looking at the less sexy roles because they're looking at
Mm,
more established positions or people who understand supply chain, manufacturing, etc. Because that's really when, hey, we need to scale, we need to do it in the right way, and people that understand this stuff. The ones that have got a ton of investment and they've
yeah.
got the hype behind them right now, there's a few buckets. One, they're looking at research. And this is only if they understand the value of researchers. And really, they need to have either one of the founders or one of the leaders that has come from a research background, right? They've got a PhD, they've spent time in labs, they understand what research and then applied research and then how you translate that into a commercial product, how that works. So they're looking at really cool stuff there. These are the forward thinking ones. Like maybe they have their engineering team, product team, and they have a research lab internally. So some really cool stuff happening there. And it's tough. It's really tough because depending where someone is in their career, like if they are a researcher, them going into industry is not always an easy transition, or they love the lab life, right? Or they want to be in, oh, okay, I'll go over there because my professor founded this company and I can go, or hey, I've been interning with this company because they're associated with MIT, CMU, wherever it is. And now it's an easy transition.
Yeah.
That's one part. The other part is there's a lot in physical AI and embodied AI right now, and in every area, even manufacturing, and it's how people are looking at it and categorizing it and thinking about, obviously humanoids are hot right now. There's a lot there. There's a lot that's transferable. I think within the humanoid world, it's manipulation is really a tough thing. Locomotion and manipulation are like
Of the
ones that
hands
are
being
hot.
able
Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah, the hands, there's always been a tough problem. Locomotion as well for the walking and stability stuff. But embodied AI in general, deeply learning, reinforcement learning, VLAs, VLMs, all of that stuff is very hot for the I don't want to say buzzy companies, because there's a lot that are really applying this stuff to industry, but you can look at the hype, the buzz. You can look at companies that are like focused on a real commercial problem. They still want the same stuff, right?
Yeah, that makes sense because there's a lot of research players that are looking to get a demo ready product, whether it's humanoid or any other category. So they're going to pull from the PhDs that are out there. They're going to they're going to invest in early technical founders, the founding engineers. So they're staffing for that. And then you're saying companies that are actually now have gotten scalability, stability, hiring for people that are actually going to build a business, that are going to take the supply chain forward and make the product mass producible. So there's those two camps, which makes total sense.
Because your products are defined, right? Your products are defined, your customers defined, which isn't a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's a successful business. But then you probably have your R&D arm that's
Yeah.
hiring some of the other people that I mentioned, but it's not the main focus of the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the transition goes from R&D now into operations and supporting functions.
Yeah.
Where would you say, you talked a little about the hype around humanoids and the hype space, right? Where would you say in the industry hype is really high, but the hiring is really low? Areas where if somebody, I'm thinking more so from a perspective of a newcomer, a college grad, or somebody that is interested in robotics that wants to get into the industry, and space that they should not really go into because the hype is there, but it's not
Mm,
really being staffed. I don't know if
yeah.
I'm
No, no, no. I
yeah.
hear what you're saying. I think if it's someone in college, the industry, actually, let me just start that again, because I think the industry is moving so quick right now in general, right? You probably get all the newsletters and you keep a pulse, you do this podcast, you're speaking to people, you've got more of an insight than the general public, right?
Right.
Let's do it on a quarterly basis. The advancements in technology are just so drastic compared to 5 years ago that it's hard to predict where a skill set or an industry will be by the time you graduate. So someone thinking about it, I think, should be positioning themselves in a generic's probably the wrong word. Like in a skill set or vertical that is transferable across all of these applications. So, perception, computer vision, all of that stuff is needed in everything. For example, machine learning is needed in all of these, right? And if you're staying at the cutting edge of all of that, right, you're not going to go now into traditional computer vision because there isn't really a need, right? So if you're staying at the forefront of all of this stuff, you can work in drones if that becomes like the main thing. You could work in humanoids if they take off how everyone hopes they will. You can work in autonomous vehicles, AMRs, whatever. There'll be a need, right? So that's what I would say. Instead of saying, I just want to be a hand developer for humanoids and focus on manipulation. There will be, but at some point it's going to get solved, or there'll be
Yeah.
a mass produced option, right? And you can always work on the incremental improvements, but where do you want to really like focus as a whole? It's tough to predict.
Yeah.
For example, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, someone going into college was like, I'm going to be a software engineer. And then you come out now and it's like, well, most entry software engineer roles, it's like hard to get because AI is doing so much of
Right.
that. And the
Yeah.
teams are getting
Senior
pushed to do.
developers are the ones that
Yeah,
are running AI. Um,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. What you're saying makes sense. I'm sure you're also seeing it. I'm getting hit up by a lot of folks that are coming out of their master's program or PhD programs, and they're going, I want to get into robotics, I want to get into humanoids, or I want to get into the industry. I have an interest, I have a skill, but how do I what advice would you have? And then there's also the other camp that is in a different industry and they want to jump into robotics. And that's where, how do you make that transition into the workforce, especially for you're in academia and now you want to go into the industry? That pathway, I think, in past used to be much more smooth. You would get offers easily, right, for entry level roles. Now that entry level space is very blurry, and I think it's going away. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's so tough because I speak to and I get reached out to by a lot of grads or people in their master's programs, bachelor's, whatever it is. And it is a very hard transition because, to your point, most companies, a lot of the ones that they want to work at anyway, they're not hiring people at that level.
Mm, yeah,
I think part of it is educating the job searchers on what they have to offer and who they're targeting. Because if you come out and you say, hey, I want to work at, one of these hot humanoid companies, a lot of them are in startup mode, right? Even if they've raised $1 billion, they're still being specific about who they want to hire. And they shouldn't be frivolously hiring where before people might have 10 or 15 headcount per team, and now they've only got 3 or 4, right? So they want more bang for their buck in terms of seniority or ability or a Swiss Army knife type candidate. So it's very hard to come in and compete as a grad,
mm,
which sucks. But there are companies that are hiring, like we used to call them super interns, right? So you've already graduated, you graduated in May, and you come in and you start an internship right afterwards. You just paid internship, but it's still technically an internship, but it's a very high likelihood that it will convert into a full-time role now because
mm,
you have already graduated, right? So you're getting paid minimum wage or whatever it is, but you're working on real world products, real world problems with the team. You're embedded and you've proved your worth. So it's an
yeah,
easy conversion for that company to do with someone who's already under their roof. Going back further, I very much encourage, always do, that these students get internships and are part of project teams, whatever it is, right? Their satellite teams, Formula SAE, whatever it is, their Hyperloop team, because it shows so much to a potential employer. One, two, it gets you real world experience. And three, if you've already been an intern somewhere,
yeah,
maybe even you're a returning intern, you've gone back twice. I've spoken to PhDs that are like, oh, I'm at JPL, this is my second year. They also say they're not going back again because of everything going on at NASA. But like, that's a real world example of like, hey, I come back 2 years in a row. So obviously when I graduate, there'll be a role. It's being mindful of, you don't have all the bargaining chips. As shitty as it sounds to say, but you're competing against people with a lot of experience. So how about getting
yeah,
something secure, get in the industry, get some years under your belt, and then you have a resume. Then you have a brand name associated to you. Then you've got like more of a network. And the
yeah,
last thing I would say is network is huge. Go to conferences if you can, go to career fairs if you can, try and stand out. Easier said than done, but the more people you go out, the more hands you shake, people you meet, companies you learn about, um,
you
it's
create
just
luck for yourself, right?
you create
It's
luck for
yeah,
yourself. You're learning by sitting in talks and hearing about industries. So you have something genuine to talk to people about at a networking event because you might, oh, I heard you speak. I really like that part that you said about XYZ, or I'm actually doing something similar in my course. It's a
yeah,
human connection, and they might not have a job, but they might know someone else who does, or they might know about another startup, or they might know another team that's hiring. Like,
yeah.
again, you create your luck, like you said.
No,
Job searching is a full-time job.
it I think in that environment where it's no longer a defined path. You have to chart a course for yourself. It's just the reality of the environment right now. I think a lot of us, like almost 20 years into the industry, when I started, it was a straightforward path. You followed, you got your entry level role, which was already defined. You were recruited out of campus and you moved into your career. But now it's more about those networking opportunities, like you said, projects, like you said, and landing it. So on the flip side, where is a lack of talent? Which spaces have a lack of talent? Where are you seeing roles that are impossible to hire for? There's demand, but not enough people out there to fill those roles. Is there a space like that?
That is a good question. The thing is, they're so new,
Mm,
right? A lot of the more cutting edge and advanced AI work, deep learning, reinforcement learning, manipulation work, like the AI side of it, not traditional locomotion, not traditional computer vision, all of that stuff, the new stuff that companies really want to get into. There's people, but again, to the point of they want to spearfish higher, get bang for their buck. And
mm,
it's all like, hey, I need someone to come in and have an impact right now. There's not that many people who have done it commercially. There's not that
yeah,
many companies that have done that and scaled or released a product. And the ones that are doing the really interesting stuff, I've spoken to founders and they're like, these are the 4 researchers. I want these people. Like, here, I'll give you their profiles. I just need you to get them. I'm like, have you tried it? Yeah, of course I've tried. I'm like, yeah, well, so has everyone else. What is different? Oh, well, we've used their research in our product. And I was like, so have a lot of other people. Like, tell me something else. How are we going to get these people? And they
yeah,
are constantly getting reached out to because they are the cream of the crop, right? I remember a few years ago, I was headhunting people from like 2 labs because I knew they are doing what this client of mine needs.
yeah,
And no one was getting back to me. And even the heads of the labs, I was trying to headhunt them. Next thing, they Sergey and Chelsea create physical intelligence because I was headhunting them and all their students. And then their students have gone and into that company. You're like, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, but like, how does this small little startup compete with something like that?
yeah.
Right. So those are some examples. There's a lot of need. Aren't as many people at the level that
Hmm.
companies ideally want. That is kind of a universal problem. I always try to advise clients, like, if you can bend, flex, compromise on your scope and think about how can we, instead of hiring this one person, maybe hire 2 that complement each other, or we hire one person that we can give 6 months to upskill and train, and we'll back them with some courses and things like that. If they have the hunger and they show like that trajectory in their career
Yeah,
already, like, then you found this diamond in the rough that's getting overlooked by everyone else. Like, can you do that? The problem is a lot of startups can't because they are on such a time crunch, right? Hey, we raised our pre-seed. We have to do this before our seed. We don't
mm,
have 6 months. Cool. When you get to the seed, it's like, yeah, well, now we've got to hit to our A. And for us to hit that milestone with that customer, like, we need someone in right now. And they don't realize you've spent 6 months looking for that person, you know?
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's an interesting problem on both sides. On the talent side, trying to break in, and on from a founder, from executives of startups side, where they're trying to get talent, which is concentrated at the very top, and they only a handful, a select number of people have the opportunity or have the skill set where they're really in demand, and you're not able to get them.
I always try to encourage founders as well in the nicest way possible. But like, self-awareness is such a gift and is so important when you are a leader and also a founder. And it's not only self-awareness of like you and maybe your limitations or the bottlenecks you create as a leader, like, hey, I need to delegate, I need to hire other support, whatever. But it's also of your business. Because when you turn around and you say,
Mhm.
I had a client that said this, I only want people from NVIDIA and Tesla. And we only want to pay them this
Yeah.
much, which is like half what they're getting. I was like, no one
How are
knows who
you
you
gonna
are.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, how are you going to convince people like that? Oh, they have to see the vision, they have to do this, but they have to have over 10 years. And I was like, so the people who have over 10 years at a company like that are probably in this position in their life. Maybe they have
mm,
kids or they're breadwinner or they've got mortgage or they have X amount of stock that they're waiting to vest. Like, how are you going to do that? No, that's all we're looking for. So if you can't do it, like, all right, well, we can't do it.
mm.
I mean, I'll tell you what people are saying, but we might get lucky. And we got lucky with one, but again, it was luck. It's not realistic. So being aware of who you are in the market, who you're competing against, the talent you want, and what else they can get. You have to have a really compelling EVP,
Hmm.
your employee value proposition. You have to have a
Yeah.
really compelling story and vision, and then some sort of, I don't know, carrot to dangle with the role or it's like, hey, come in, you're a founding engineer, but really you're our CTO, or you're going to be a leader of
Yeah.
X. Like, that's interesting enough to someone if they believe in that product or that vertical. So, sorry, I know you're
Yeah.
going to say something, but
No, that I was going in the same vein to ask you, how do you attract talent when you're not established yet, you only have a vision, and a demo and a concept. But yeah, you already hit on it, that vision will only get you so far. You have to create incentives, whether it's through the title, whether that's through the future growth, equity comes into it. How do you create incentives for people to buy in to your company more than just the vision, but actually they see a future there, and they see that they're going to grow in terms of financially and from a skill perspective, right?
it's a whole package and it's the whole picture. But you also have to think about what the hire will do for your business. Some
Mm.
founders do, right? And they probably do it too much to one extreme. By that, I mean, it's like, we only want Tesla and Nvidia people. Why? Because we're about to raise and we want to put those logos on our deck and it will look good. But I was like, well, are those people good? Are they what your business needs? And then there's the other side where it's like, hey, look, I'm an experienced operator, or I understand this industry, but I need a hot CTO, like someone who's experienced, who is valuable, who is credible, who can build a team. And I will spend half of our pre-seed on that person if I need to, because I know it's going to unlock my team and my
Mm.
next round and
Yeah.
credibility in the marketplace. It's like, okay, amazing. You get it, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not a founder, so they don't have the same equity. But you also know that person in their life cannot take a $400,000 pay cut, for example, to come in on hopes and dreams of a
Mm.
pre-seed company. Like, there is give and take here. And I think that the people who really get it and make traction, make progress, and get to those next stages are investing like that.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest mistake that early stage robotic founders make when it comes to hiring?
The biggest mistake? That's such a good question. I think it's going to be about like disciplines, not having like being too focused on one area. So like,
Mm.
hey, we're just purely focused on the product, So when,
Yeah,
when I
because you
say
have
the product,
limited resources, limited funding. It's about what do you prioritize? And you could have blinders on. You may come from a background of, I don't know, engineering, and you may go, I need an electrical engineer, right? And that may not be the best move for the product that you have,
yeah.
as
But
an
also,
example.
yeah, and also like if you're a solo technical founder, now you're founder, CEO, CTO, and you're just focused on your product and your engineering problems, your R&D, right? You might have come from an industry where you want to apply this product to, so you get that. But now you don't have anyone who understands go to market, who understands operations, who understands scale, who understands sales, right?
Yeah.
You need knowledge in the room. They don't have to technically be employees. They could be advisors. They could be consultants, contractors. From your investors, right? Choose an investor or investors that
Mm.
have subject matter expertise internally and use it instead of thinking you know everything. I think that's the biggest mistake that not just in robotics, but a lot of founders,
Yeah. Such a good
make.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're building a business at the end of the day. You're not just building a product. If you focus on the product too much, you may not
Yeah.
have a business.
Investors have told me time and time again, like on my show or just having conversations, and I ask, what do you look for? And a lot of them is always key. We want a technical expert in a founding team, but we also want an industry expert. So that could be someone like, if you're doing an ag tech robot, right? There's an agriculture, so someone who's born and raised in the farms, right?
Yeah.
Who has run
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
like,
Knows
and
it.
now, yeah, and now they are your CEO, right? And then your CTO, who might have been the sole founder at first, but has gone out and found someone who believes in what they are building. And now they understand the use case and the language of the industry and the buying style and cycles and places
Yeah.
to go, people to speak to. Then you've got the technical. I'm a roboticist and I'm a farmer. And we came
Mm.
together and we're building this ag tech robot because, it's the best way of doing it. And I know why, because I've seen it and I would have bought this myself. That's compelling, you know?
Yeah.
So that in some way, shape, or form is always a great leadership or founding team to have.
Yeah. And I'm learning so much about the recruitment side of things. I, I'm hiring right now within where I am, and just a lot of these things uh, are, you know, are hitting home with me, as they will with folks that are trying to build companies within robotics and robotic product. Let's switch gears a little bit. We're running low on time. I just realized we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
I want to know about the podcast side of things. So,
Okay.
how has your podcast changed your access to founders, to talent? How has it helped?
Yeah. It's, not to be big headed, but I started the podcast when I already had a bit of a network. And so,
Mm,
your first 10 episodes, you want to just talk to the people you
yeah,
know who trust you, who you've got some sort of background with, and like get that going. But it was nothing like it is now. And I will tell anyone who's interested in starting a podcast or doing anything within marketing or branding activity, something that was told to me a long time ago was brand and marketing, it's a compounding effort. It's like investing. If you put $100 away a month and interest compounds and it's going to grow,
yeah,
grow, grow exponentially. Same thing with this. Like at first you see nothing, right? You don't get views, visitors, like some people share it and you get like kudos, but it really is an effort. It has to be a labor of love. It has to be something that you enjoy and
mm,
that you see the value in long term. So I mentioned earlier, I think there was 5 reasons why I started the podcast.
yeah. I was interested
Yeah.
in pulling on that thread next. Yeah,
Let's see if there is 5. I said 5. So there was, because before when I was part of, Hyperloop and Sweetgreen, I was associated to a company. So I was associated to a brand. I would get speaking engagements and I would be on a bunch of other podcasts and stuff like that. But I was Greg from X company. So when I started my business, I wanted to do something that was like personal branding for me, business branding for the business. I wanted to feed the ecosystem because where it came around is I was having so many interesting conversations with founders and investors and meeting people at conferences. And I was like, you're so cool. And this conversation has been great, but it's just me and you, right? How can I share
yeah.
it? Or this person, no
With the
one knows
world.
who you
Yeah.
are. Yeah. No one knows who you are or no one knows your perspective or your company. Like, even if I can't work with them, they're too early, but like we
Hmm.
should talk about and share. So it's like giving back to the ecosystem. 3, there was networking as well,
Yeah.
which
Of
is
course.
huge. And then learning. So yeah, there's five things.
Yeah.
So when I network with people now, like it's not a recruiter traditionally, again, I think I mentioned it earlier, is like a necessary evil sometimes, or like people look at you,
Mm,
there's a bad rap in the industry, like a used car salesman or a real estate agent or whatever. Like it's, do you have any jobs? Or people send out CVs, resumes like blind and just hope that it's got a nasty side of it that like irritates people. So you can tell when you meet people and you introduce, oh yeah, I've got a recruiting business. But I always say, yeah, I've got a recruiting business. We focus on, robotics, hard tech and AI. And I flip my business card around. So I've got my business card with Samson Rose and everything. And then I've got the podcast on the back. So I've got Machine Minds and my QR
yeah.
code. So I say, and I have a podcast. So I interview founders, leaders, and investors. We talk about XYZ and we're this many episodes. And that is like, it's disarming because when I speak to people, I meet them, I was like, if you ever want to be on a show, only if I
Yeah.
think they're relevant, obviously.
Yeah.
And I meet so many cool people that way. I'm able to have real, genuine conversations. You spend an hour talking to someone about them and their industry and their experience and their career, and you give your little nuggets here and there. It's not about me at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? I want to talk about talent somewhere in it because it's important to me, but it's not about recruiting. It's about them and
Yeah.
positioning them as a thought leader and subject matter expert. So it's helped a lot with visibility, with network, with credibility as well, and obviously business development. But it's hard to put ROI on it. It's just something that I'm not going to stop, but I know it's helped
Yeah.
indirectly.
And I think if what you're saying resonates with me so much, even though I'm earlier in my on that journey, right? But I think the reasons you mentioned, all of them are true for me as well. I would add a sixth one, which is it's kind of meditative. You
Mm,
know, this 1 hour or so that we reserve for a conversation, the fact that it's being recorded, the fact that we're trying to put something out that would be useful for other people makes it sacred in some ways. You're locked in. You're no longer distracted. You put
So true.
everything away, right? And
Yeah.
you're tuned in. Conversations you would have at work or elsewhere, you always have something else on your mind. You're half listening. And I feel when I speak to somebody in this format, it's unlike anything else. You're fully in it. So that's that meditative sort of locked in zone that you get out of this format. That's another piece. And your point about disarming effect of introducing yourself as a podcaster, I've noticed that too. I'm going to conferences, I'm meeting a lot of potential folks cool people that I want to talk to and I want to interview and get to know, build my network in that space. It's only happening because I introduce myself as I'm in the industry. They go, okay, sure, yeah, all right, but I'm also doing a
Yeah.
podcast. Like, oh, okay, tell me more about that. So people are more receptive. It's a shoe in
For sure.
for yeah.
People love to talk about themselves, and as human nature esque as that can be, it's true at the end of the day, especially if you're a founder of a robotics company, you're looking to get the word out there, or if you're an expert in your own area and you want to share. And at any interaction, people always think when you introduce yourself, you're trying to get something from them. Like it's for you, it's
Mm,
selfish. But if you're saying, I have a podcast, I'd love to get you on
yeah.
sometime or something, it's about them. It's not transactional now. And I try to do even before the podcast, I try to always lead with giving before I ask for anything. Like I'm making intros for people, I'm sharing conference info, I'm sharing podcasts with them, I'm giving them insight in the industry. Like before I ever ask them for anything or they expect me to ask for anything, it's just like, hey, we're in the network now. Let me help you. Let me be useful. I don't just want to be
Yeah.
another name. And then if it makes sense at a time when it makes sense, make intros for me or come to me if you need to hire or whatever. And if you don't, so I speak to so many people that use other recruiters. I don't care. There's enough for everyone, right? If they want to work, I want to work with people that want to work with me at the end of the day. So I'm not going to chase business that isn't meant for me.
Yeah, and it goes back to your approach, goes back to what you were talking about. Everything good in life comes out of that compounding effect. You're putting in capital, social capital, and sort of that connection capital over time. It generates results for you, increases your network, it increases your connection with people where the result is the trust. Once uh, you're a trusted partner, you also benefit from it. You're able to help the other party out in your world that will be recruiting. You're making the connections, and all of that comes from that compounding effect. I don't know if you know Neville. Neville, he's um, he's got this book, the Almanac of Naval. He was an early investor in Uber and a whole bunch of tech companies. He's a super smart guy. He's on a whole bunch of podcasts, and he's put a book out on his lessons in life, how wealth works and how happiness works, right? Like different categories.
Those are
And
separate books or they're
no,
all
separate chapters, like how
okay.
how to get wealth in life, how to acquire happiness, and how to maintain your health. And he's basically laid out the lessons that he's learned over his lifetime. But one thing that stands out over and over again that I keep thinking about and keep going back to is he says, do something that is play for you and is work for other people.
Mm,
I think for you and I, podcasting seems to be that, right? For me, I can talk to people for hours, and
yeah,
because part of it is I'm learning, but I also enjoy the format. For others, that would be work. They would be, why do that? They're not
right.
gonna get it. So that generates early in my journey, but for you, that's generating returns
For sure.
already. That's compounding. I'm
And it will
digressing,
for
but
no, and it
yeah,
will for you as well. It's so true. It's so true. There are people that always ask me like, so how much money do you make podcasting? Or like, how do you make money from it? I'm like, I don't,
yeah.
I don't have people always ask to advertise and stuff like that, or like, and I just haven't done that yet. And I mean, I could, and I do it for companies I believe in, but it's not the focus. The focus is having cool
Hmm.
conversations with great people and great companies, and just like being consistent. And, we're 130 something episodes now in less than 3 years. So it's hopefully showing.
Yeah, great. Let's talk a little bit about out of recruiting now that you have a leading indicator view. You're plugged into the robotic space. You can see where all the building is happening, where the industry is headed. We talked a little bit about that. If you extrapolate, where do you see the robotics space? I know it's a lot of different verticals there, but what do you see in the future, 10 years down the line, from your perspective? What is changing for in the industry itself, and also how is our life going to change, you think, in the next 10 years?
I think automation, robotics in general is just going to be everywhere. A lot more visible for people, a lot more, less of a shock factor. Like I get in a Waymo and I send a video to some people and they're like, oh my God, I would never get in a car. Like, oh, how was that? And, if you're in San Francisco, you
Think
see
about it.
those sort of Zooks or
Yeah.
whatever. You're just like, whatever. But to that point, you land in San Francisco airport and there's Cafe X right there. And then there's Waymos over there. And you see them all over the place. Or if you were in China or Korea or whatever, and there's robots around, in certain places, it's like that already. And I think in day-to-day life, in most of the Western world, that's what it's going to be. You're going to have them in your restaurants. You're going to have them in the stores, in your hotels. And you see it now already. You go to Boston,
Yeah.
you stay in a hotel and they have like robots bringing food to your room or cleaning the floors. You see it in
I
Heathrow
haven't
Airport in
seen that
London.
in a
No?
hotel setting. I haven't yet come across that, but I
Yeah.
know companies that are working on that space. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in Santa Clara Convention Center and they've got like the same robots doing the same thing. And it's like they're around, they're just not everywhere. And I think in the next 10 years, it is going to be, and probably won't be humanoids everywhere like a lot of people are hoping, because there's a lot of other elements to factor in for
Yeah.
that to happen. But it will come for sure. But I think we're more likely seeing like AMRs and single use, dual use things, like maybe they're making drinks and serving you or things like that. And I'm unsure about in the home. I think there's going to be more robots in the home, but like people won't think of them as robots. They're going to be, someone said something a while back. I can't remember if it was on my podcast or at a conference, but it was, you stop thinking of them as robots when they become an appliance. Like a dishwasher is technically a
Yeah.
robot, right? A washing machine, a
Or a
dryer,
Roomba,
a
right?
Roomba,
You don't
right? You're
think
like, it's my
of it.
vacuum. Yeah, you're not saying I'm going to go and get my robot to, it's not,
Yeah.
it's my vacuum cleaner. So there's other really cool ones like Posha that does food. They're like a chef in a box and you just feed it the ingredients and it's got a screen with all these different menu items and it makes your food. You just leave it there. And that is a tabletop appliance, but it's a robot,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to see a lot more of those. There's cleaning ones, there's dry cleaning ones, there's all these other things that are just going to become more accessible. And we'll just, because the general public now, it's been one of the blessings of the AI hype, in my opinion, is since everyone's talking about chat GPTs and Claude and all that, and you're having these conversations with your parents who have no idea how to use their iPhone, but they talk to you about AI, because the general public are open to it and understanding it and are trying to adopt it, it's allowed them to open their mind to adopting other forms of technology like that. And it's brought a lot more investment into the space and the commercial viability has become real.
And
Adoption has become real.
physical AI and smart machines have become a thing because of AI, right? It's the machine mind was not possible without the AI space. So it's beyond the hype. It's going to create those machines. The delivery side of things is going to be huge, like with Zipline, the last mile problem of using automation to deliver your packages, because we all now shop. Nobody's going to the stores. So
Yeah, it's so true.
delivering food and delivering stuff to your house, that's another category that
Yeah.
is accelerating.
I went into LA. I used to live in LA and then I live in Orange County now. And I went up there a couple of weeks ago to see some friends and I was like blown away because I hadn't been for a while. When I go there, I go to see family. So then residential areas, but I was like in Hollywood and I'm like, there's serve robots going around and there's
Yeah.
Waymo cars going this way. And then there's another delivery robot over here, Coco. And I'm like, I could have never thought of this like 6 years ago. There's cars driving around. People are
Yeah.
fine taking cars without drivers, and people are getting their Wingstop out of these little things and their CVS. And I'm like, this is
Yeah.
so cool. But it's just a
It's the
glimpse.
Jetsons.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just, you throw in Zipline, you throw in all this other stuff like Amazon's trying to do their drone deliveries and whatever it is, or even robot companies that are working with the Amazons to do the door-to-door deliveries, right? Last mile. And you're going to see them. You're going to see them every day, whether you own them or not.
Yeah. No, good point. It's been wonderful talking to you, Greg. It's we're approaching time. I'm mindful of that. Before I let you go, we're gonna do what we've been doing as a tradition out here at Robot Builders Club, which actually I saw on Machine Mind, is the lightning round.
Okay.
I throw a whole bunch of questions at you really, really fast and try to get your reactions without thinking too much. I want to get your first reactions. I want to
The raw reaction. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me lock in.
Let's do this. Generalist or specialist? Who is going to win in robotics?
Specialist.
PhDs, are they overvalued or are they providing the right signals to the robotics companies?
Right signals. The caveat that I mentioned earlier, though, you have to really know how to transfer PhD academia research into commercial.
With an asterisk.
Yes.
Of course. Simulation experience, is it a must-have or it's overhyped?
As an engineer having experience in simulation, I don't think it's a must-have.
San Francisco, and I know you're going to be maybe biased on this. Is it still the center of gravity for robotics or the space is fragmenting?
I never thought it was the center of gravity for robotics, in all honesty.
If you go to the conferences that I'm going to, people have this view of we are in the mecca of robotics. So, there's a lot of companies here, but I agree with you.
There's a lot of companies, but it's hard to build a big hardware-centric company in San Francisco because of cost, right? And then you've got Stanford there, but then you've got MIT in Boston and CMU in Pittsburgh, and yeah.
All right, you answered my question. Let's talk about Los Angeles. Underrated for hard tech or not?
I think, I wouldn't say it's underrated, maybe underappreciated. There's so much hard tech engine like that. In my opinion, LA is the home of hard tech.
Got it. Yeah. Humanoids. Let's talk about that. Inevitable or a distraction?
I think inevitable. Yeah. But these are too simple. These are too difficult to answer so simply. If I have to just say one thing, I'd say inevitable. I can talk more about that, but yeah, we'll leave it there.
Machine learning in robotics, overhyped or a critical layer?
Critical layer.
One role everyone is hiring for, but shouldn't be hiring.
Oh, I don't know. I think there's a place for all roles. I'd say I'll put title, right? Robotics engineer.
Okay.
Stop. Just be specific, because it's such a catch-all title. It means something different everywhere. And you get so much irrelevant talent if you post a robotics engineer role because they search a title and spray and pray their resume, but you want someone that's leaning more to one side than the other, like more hardware than software, more vision than be specific about what you're looking for. Yeah. With a dash, robotics engineer, perception, robotics engineer, ML, whatever it is.
Totally makes sense. And the final question, one skill someone should start building this week if they want to break into robotics?
If they want to break into robotics, I think communication is such a general skill that people undervalue.
I love that. The storytelling piece of it, right?
Everything. If you're going into an interview, how are you going to sell yourself? How are you going to tell your story? How are you going to express your interests and what you've done in your career or in your education, right? Some people just don't think as much about how to communicate. That will make the difference in someone hiring you from a intellectual standpoint, cultural standpoint, representing the business standpoint, or even just looking at can I work with this person? So I think that is not only for robotics, just in general, people need to, and it might surprise you, but I'm an introvert naturally, and I've had to
really
hone in all of the tests and all that stuff. But how you communicate and engage with people and talk to people and ask open questions and actually be interested, it's such a
it's so true. Even beyond just new hires, or or somebody trying to break into a new space, the storytelling piece, oftentimes people don't fully comprehend, especially engineer types. You know, you're a builder, you're a problem solver, but nobody is gonna understand what you're trying to build if you're not able to lay out the right story. Nobody's gonna fund it unless you're able to create a narrative. I've seen folks that have started at the same time as me, and they've gone way ahead, done so much better than me because they were just great storytellers. They were able to communicate and bring people together and rally support way better. So that's totally true. Yeah. No, wonderful answer there, Greg. With that, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, your wisdom. Thank you for being an inspiration. I want to keep pulling lessons from you, not just in podcasting, but how you're navigating the industry and how you're building your business. It's been wonderful talking to you.
I really appreciate that. This has been one of my favorite conversations that I've had in a long time. So thank you.
Stop.
I appreciate
You're probably
you
saying that to every guest.
I'm not.
In your 130.
Yeah, no, I've said it a few times. I'm not going to lie, but like it's a treat being a guest on someone else's show. And then I think you ask awesome questions. And yeah, this has made me think a lot as well. So I'm happy I have stuff to share that some people might find valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
My
Talk
pleasure.
soon.
Yeah, definitely.